What's going on, Spiritualites? Back for video number 3, the process, aka what strategy I'm going to be using. Now, I know this is what most of you are tuning in for, right? To get the strategy, to get the concepts and the indicators and what I'll be looking for in order to execute my trades. And we will get to that, I promise. But again, I'm still trying to roll out this channel, just give you a little bit more background. So before we get started into all these lines and indicators and everything that I've got on this screen, I want to talk a little bit about how I got here. Okay, so starting first with the problem. Why did my old systems fail? Thinking back on everything that I've tried over the past couple of years, one thing I really tried to change with this new iteration of a strategy is I needed to make it more simple. I found myself having lines all over my charts, pulling up this indicator, pulling up that indicator. I had so many indicators favorited. I'll use this one in this case, this one in that case. I just got so much, it filled up my head, and I didn't really have a true direction. Also, another reason why some of my systems failed is that there are not enough opportunities, right? If I would truly want to become a day trader, that means I'm taking anywhere between 1 to 3 trades per asset per day. So if I follow 3 assets, the goal would be to get around anywhere from 5 to 9 trades in that session. One setup I used to use was on the 15-minute time frame. And a 15-minute time frame does give you some strong signals, but as you can calculate, there are only a certain amount of 15-minute intervals in a trading day, right? If you have 8 hours, you have 4 15-minute bars within 1 hour, right? So that's 32 bars in order to make a trade. And that really just wasn't feasible. I'd maybe trade once a week. And while some of those strategies were a little bit stronger in terms of win percentage, it wasn't the increase of funds that I was looking for. Okay, it just wasn't producing enough for me. Some of them were too subjective, right? I tried to take too many things into account, basically. And I had to look at this and look at that. So they didn't really help me in terms of giving me like a clear direction. What do I do and what do I not do? I tried using LuxAlgo. I tried using some of those other courses that I took and Discords that I joined. I used their strategies, and it just seemed to never fit my personal style and what I brought to the table. When I'm choosing my strategy this time around, I noticed that I'm picking something that actually I can see on the chart, right? That is clear as day to me. I don't have to guess. I don't have to be subjective this time and then try to treat it a different way next time, right? So another reason why my systems would fail is they would be too robotic. And so I used ChatGPT to try to build me the perfect strategy, right? So that I could just train a robot to do it. And so I tried the robot thing for a while, and it does work for some people. But again, not consistently enough, and then ChatGPT would always come back with errors. So I find myself saying, hey, I need this, and then I put it in and it doesn't work. I say, hey, there's a piece of code that doesn't work, because I'm not a coder by trade at all, not even close. I have no idea where to even begin with that stuff. But I asked ChatGPT to create me some code, and I could put it into TradingView and test my strategy, and some of them worked. But again, I'd have 6 trades in 3 months. And it's like, okay, sure, but I need more. And who's to say that the strategy actually works, or if it just worked over 6 trades? Like in 30 days, you only have 6 trades, so you can't even tell, if that strategy is actually going to be a winning strategy. So I did the AI route, and I tried plenty of different prompts and, hey, look at this, look at that. It just didn't feel generic. Did not feel generic to me. One of the good things that did come out of it was what I wanted to be a strategy ended up being an indicator. And so I'll go over that indicator in just a minute. All this to say, these old strategies ended up wasting a lot of time for me, back testing. So once I did learn how to properly back test and journal and learn from my mistakes and use different tools to help me build onto my strategies, it's time consuming. I'd spend weeks trying to test out 1 or 2 strategies that end up not working or not being as efficient as I needed, or something wasn't quite right. And it also took a hit on my confidence as well, which we talked a little bit about psychology in the last video. And so I ended up learning how not to do a lot of things or how to do a lot of things that didn't actually work for me, right? Any strategy will work depending on who you are and what you like to identify on the charts. So it's not that they don't work, but it just didn't fit my style. And so that's what led to the rebuild. I cleared everything off the charts. I made it a blank chart. And then I looked and I just wanted to see, hey, look at this move. What if I would have got in right here? How could I have gotten in right there? What is telling me, hey, maybe you want to buy here, or hey, maybe you want to sell here, right? And so I would slowly add on some of the basics that I learned from the very beginning of my trading journey and realized that I was always making it overcomplicated. It was so complex. I needed to do this. I needed to do that. So now what I've done is I've made it very simple for myself. While there does seem to be 5 indicators on the screen, as you'll see in front of you, got this purple line, this gray line, and then these 3 oscillators at the bottom. It's actually as simple as I could find while also being efficient, right? I want a win percentage that is somewhere above 35, 40%, and I don't want to have to think too hard when I'm taking these trades, and I don't want to never have an opportunity because it's so specific, right? So when I really sat down and thought about it, I was like, what can get me in and out of trades very quickly, and what is simple enough for me to repeat over and over and over again while also giving me a little bit of an edge. And so now we get to the rebuild. So let's start. Let's take a look at what I've got on my chart here. The first thing you may notice is that this is not a normal chart. I don't use green and red. I just wanted to kind of personalize it, do my own thing, give me a kind of sense of ownership over what I'm doing. And so I used orange to signify up and gray candles to signify going down. And so I used different shades of orange and gray, as you'll come to see, to signal whether I'm taking short or if I'm going long or if the trend is going up or if the trend is going down. Right, anytime you see gray, that's mainly a signal that I'm using for negative price action. And anytime you see orange, that's when you're going to see positive price action. I'm right here in this gray line going across. Now I know I just said that's usually marking a negative price action, but for this indicator, it is actually my 200 moving average. So it's my long-term indicator, using this to determine the long-term trend, right? The purple line you see here, is the 20 moving average, right? So the last 20 periods. And so notice that I am on a 2-minute chart. So the last 20 periods would be 40 minutes. So the last 40-minute average is this purple line moving along here. All right. And then I use 3 more indicators, which you'll see at the bottom here. We'll start with the volume. Now, volume is usually on top, but if I put it on top, it fades into my price action, and that really gets on my nerves. So I put it in the middle in its own separate pane, so I wouldn't have to deal with that. I'm sure there's another workaround where I could have kept it on top, but I didn't know how to do it, so that's my solution. So notice that anytime you see an orange candle or orange bars, they represent buying volume, and then you'll see the gray bars, they represent selling volume. Moving up here, you can see the RSI Plus. I have not edited this to make it part of my orange and gray theme, but maybe I'll do that one day, probably not. I've already just learned to use it the way it is. And so you'll see here that we have an RSI, basically very simple RSI, same RSI, just use the plus because I like the highlights. That's all. My highlights let me know, hey, if it's green highlight, it's very overbought, consider selling. And here we have red highlights, which are very oversold, so consider buying. And you'll notice, as you can see through my screen here, they don't always mark perfect tops or perfect bottoms, but there is price action that happens, quite high volatility that happens usually when we get this or start to get this. So you notice here, we've got some highlights here, but nothing really happened, but then we got our big highlight and price reversed from here, giving us a nice move. And the last indicator I use, which unfortunately you guys will not be able to get, at least at the current moment, is this bottom, and I call it the 0. So basically you see you've got 2 lines here. The green line represents the Z-score as normalized as prices from the mean. So basically how far price is from the mean normalized to a z-score so that I can just put it on a scale. So my upper bound here is going to be 5, which I've been thinking about changing to 4. And my lower scale is -5, again, which I'm thinking about changing to -4. But we'll see as I backtest, and you guys will be the first to know, should that ever change. And so the yellow line is an efficiency ratio. So it's basically a trend follower, and that goes from -2 to +2. It was 0 to 1, but I wanted to change it to give it a little bit more width on my chart so I could see it better. Basically, -2 means there's kind of choppy movement. You never know what's going to happen next. As it approaches 2, that's the trend moving at strength. So once it does get to 2, however, it does kind of signal sometimes that the trend is kind of tapped out or could possibly see a reversal coming in soon. Okay, so you'll also notice highlights on these. They'll be the opposite of the RSI, whereas a green highlight on the RSI means that it is overbought, consider selling. The 0 goes straight to say, hey, sell, right, which is the red. Red, we want you to sell, or it's giving, hey, the trend is not strong as it was, or it's getting to be too strong to where it's got to cool off a little bit, right? As this green line gets closer up to the top here of this bound of 5, and not to say it can't go over 5, but that top level is usually where we see a lot of reversals happen or trends start to at least fade out a little bit. Okay, so that's it. There's only 5 indicators that I use. One other thing that I do use is structure. So I do like to see higher highs, higher lows, lower highs, lower lows, and that will also influence my trading. Other than that, that's what I use. I tried to make it very simple. I try to cut it down. I know 5 doesn't seem as simple as it could be, but with these 5 indicators, I have been able to gather quite a bit of information from the charts, and it does help guide my trading. So I use them in very specific ways so that they're always being used the same, right? I don't want volume to mean one thing in this situation and then another thing in this situation, right? So these 5 indicators plus the higher time frame trend and structure give me a solid set of 7 different aspects of the chart to look at. If I get 5 of them on my side, then I say, hey, it's a good trade to take. If I've got 4, I've got to maybe hold off a little bit, or given how strong some of the indicators are, I've got a decision to make there. If it's any less than 4, I'm not taking the trade. Okay, so now that you know at least a little bit of my setup, and more to come on the explanations, of course, in the future, but why does it matter? Like, why did I try to do this? It's all about my personal growth and my personal evolution, right? This is where I've come to. Maybe you on your journey, you're somewhere else and you want to use as many different indicators as you can, or maybe you want to see how all the different indicators play. I've done this already, guys. I've done it a lot. I've gone through pretty much every strategy you can think of, and at this point in my trading, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible so that I can have as much success as possible. Wherever you are on your journey may be somewhere different, but it is important to sometimes just take a breath, take a step back, and reevaluate what you're using and what strategies you're trying out. Because if you backtest it for 50, 100, 150, 300 trades and you're not seeing that success, it's okay to pivot a little bit. It's okay to try something new. It's okay to want to explore something different, right? What you really want to try not to do is to keep jumping and jumping and jumping as quick as you can, right? Give that strategy 300 trades. Give it 100 trades. Try it out on the backtest 100 times. And if you see some progress, maybe in your first 50 trades you were 20%, but then your next 25 trades you were 40%, maybe keep giving it a try, right? The average may not be great, but keep going, right? As long as you're seeing progress and as long as you're seeing growth in the indicators and the process that you're using, keep trying. And overall, it is going to be discipline over the excitement of winning and losing trades, right? As long as you stay disciplined and you're logging them to make sure that you're getting the win rate that you want, you're getting the setups that you want, it's going to take time and you're going to get it. No matter what, consistency is going to be key. All right, so as we get to the end of this video, the next video will be the realistic side, right? How am I doing this while also balancing a full-time job and a family that I have to take care of and I have to support, right? Where does my time come in? What happens when I'm thrown off and I don't get to stick to my schedule? Sometimes life happens. You know, sometimes doctor's appointments happen, sometimes sicknesses happen. So next one, we'll talk about the momentum moving forward and how I plan to keep posting content so that it helps me stay accountable. It's not easy fitting it into my life, and I know that we all have our own problems, right? Your specific situation is different than mine. So I think I've talked enough about this chart here. I'm using Bitcoin now. I will also be trading Solana as well on this channel. As I become more comfortable with other coins and back testing, I will add them to the roster. But right now, I think I have as much as I can fit in my schedule. And that's really what the next video is going to be about. How do I fit this into my life, my work schedule, balancing family, balancing trading, and balancing work. But until then, just remember, this is the journey, not the highlight reel. Trade smart, live free.